Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit responds in a great way after losing to the Sabres on Monday. They come out winning 3-1 against the Washington Capitals, their first regulation win against the Capitals since 2015.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Scotty's the host of over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist at the Detroit News, and I am a podcast producer for the Daily J. And Scotty, I said it in the cold open, but man, first regulation win against the Washington Capitals since 2015. I believe the broadcast said it was 12-0-1 in favor of the Capitals in that span. It might have been 13-0-1. I can't remember if it was a 12 or a 13, but that one regulation loss the Capitals had was obviously the Dylan Larkin overtime winner early in last season. Since 2015, I believe that was Dylan Larkin's rookie season. So they haven't beaten the Capitals in regulation since Dylan Larkin was a rookie.
They couldn't lose on 97 night, baby.
No, they couldn't.
They couldn't lose on 97 night. That was cool, too. Before we get into like the game itself, it was super cool to see everybody back.
It was great.
They were interviewing players throughout the game, and they mentioned, the fact that some of these dudes haven't been back in Detroit in 10, 15 years, and a handful of these guys haven't been in LCA yet, and all that. So to see them come back and get the reception that they got is awesome. Also, does Scotty Bowman age? He is
great.
The best looking 90-year-old I've ever seen in my life. Goodness gracious, dude.
Yeah, like when he walked, I was honestly expecting a lot worse because I hadn't seen him in forever. I knew he
looked fantastic, and they talk to him, and he sound like he's like all theirs. Like it was man. I hope to be breathing at 90. He's like he's still kicking it. They talk to some of the players. They're like, yeah, he still watches hockey every day. Like he's still just a hockey guy. Like Scotty B, man, what a legend.
I remember when they were interviewing, they showed a little bit of the interview between him and Mickey Redmond. He said, we talked for 2 hours. I'm like, that is insane. Good for Scotty, man. Greatest hockey head coach of all time. 8 Stanley Cups as head coach. Insane. Even more as a front office executive once you count his time with the Chicago Blackhawks. Dude's a hockey genius. Good. It was great to see all those people back. So going back to the game against the Washington Capitals, the Red Wings, honestly, overall, I thought the Capitals outplayed the Red Wings in this game, and it's reflected in the shot totals, the expected goals for percentage. The Capitals had the edge, but the Red Wings responded nicely, kept the game close. Husso especially, and that's number one thing we got to talk about in terms of individual players. But the Red Wings responded nicely after the game against the Sabres. They didn't necessarily come out and dominate like I was hoping they would, but they played a much more solid, complete game and held close to a team that's pretty dang good. I mean, they were the last team in the playoffs last year for sure. It's going to be a fight for them to get in there again, but definitely another team that is a playoff contender by the end of the season. And you might have considered this a stolen win from the Washington Capitals, but it still feels really good, man.
Feels really good. Yeah, no, this is a playoff team. This is a team that when you and I were doing our preseason, like rankings breakdown, like I think we both had as fringe playoff teams, either kind of like last in or first out area teams. Yeah, like this is a good squad, and this is again because of the. Again, I don't know if I want to use the word gauntlet, but because of the tough schedule that they had after that Devils game that they're just kind of in the midst of right now, I think this is we talked about it yesterday. This was a really important game. This was as vital as a November game could be. Like obviously nothing in November is truly, I guess, like must win, but about as must win as a game can be on November 3rd. And they really took care of business. I thought there's still a lot to clean up, and there's still a lot that we can talk about on the negative side of things. But this was a much closer game. They played them really tight. They played them really well. And yeah, they took advantage of opportunities. And then, Ville Husso was unbelievable.
Oh, and I mean, he gets number one star for sure. I didn't
Absolutely.
actually look at who the 3 stars were in this game, but if it wasn't Ville Husso, I'd be incredibly surprised because he made 31 of 32 possible saves.
Yeah.
And gives him a save percentage of 972 and just helps solidify him as, at least for the time going forward.
It was
the
920 and it went up.
Yeah. I mean, for the time being going forward, he is at least the number one goaltender. I mean, we talked about it in Tuesday's episode about who the goaltender should be, and we agreed that it should be Husso going forward because he started the season pretty well. Ned's struggling, and Ned struggled mightily on Monday. Then Husso comes out against a good Washington Capitals team in a game of the Capitals at 5-on-5, outplayed you and stood on his head. There were so many times where he just fundamentally, he is such a solid goaltender. He doesn't overcommit. He doesn't, exert too much effort. What's the word? And I can't figure out the adjective I'm trying to use, but overcommit's a good enough term to start with. But he doesn't overcommit on plays. He doesn't lateral too far to either side. And he reads where that puck's. He's not overly aggressive. Thank you. And he reads where that puck's going so well. He saved 3 or 4 shots. And remember, the opposing team had Alexander Ovechkin, who did score the lone goal. But there are many of other opportunities that he did stone Ovi in this game. So, I mean, you don't win this game if Husso's not in net. I think number one, that's where we got to start.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, I think the biggest takeaway is just that this is his net. And Ned will, his net doesn't mean, you don't have dudes that are starting, 70 games anymore. Like his net doesn't mean he's going to be out there literally every game. Ned's still going to get plenty of opportunities. But I think that this is, until proved otherwise, and we have to go with the ebbs and flow of the season, which they will certainly do without a doubt in my mind. But for the time being, it's definitely Husso's net.
Yeah, and absolutely deservedly so in this game. In fact,
stellar. Like he looked phenomenal. There were so many high danger opportunities that I mean, he got a stick on one, he got a glove side pad on one. I mean, he was all over. He had a couple of really good pokes. I mean, he was the man tonight. He really was sensational.
Oh, in all scenarios considered, he went 8 for 8 on saves and high danger scoring.
There you go.
High danger shot
Can't get any better than that.
No, you literally cannot. You got to give him at least 3 out of 4 starts going forward. That one being like a break for him, because you got to ride that hot hand. And if this team's trying to compete, with how this team's defense is, how they're struggling to produce a lot of shots in recent games, you're going to need a goalie who can steal you games. And he's given you that ability every stretch, every step of the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about the defense in front of him and whatnot, but he got peppered and had quite a few high danger opportunities and still was great.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the other big thing in this game is that obviously, like I was saying, the Red Wings got pretty outplayed at 5-on-5. Not pretty outplayed. It was close. It was a lot closer than it was, but the Capitals had the edge. In Corsi, shots total, Fenwick, in every single period. The third period, the Red Wings did have the edge in quality shot attempts. So I think it was like 51%. I have it up here. Let me scroll down to that bad boy. At 5-on-5, the Red Wings had a 51.51% expected goal for percentage in the third period. That just means that their shot attempts are of higher quality than the Washington Capitals. But overall, throughout the game, I think that it was reflected on the score sheet, what I saw on the ice, where the Capitals kind of had the edge in the first period. Second period came along, and I thought they pretty much dominated the second. But then the third period, it was a much closer game. And that's just how I saw it throughout the entire game. And that just reiterates, the problems that we've seen with this team so far is that at 5-on-5, they struggle to produce offense, break out of the zone, break into the zone. And then also the defense struggles in its own end, picking up guys and taking away lanes, with the exception of there was somebody on Alex Ovechkin like the whole game.
Right. Yeah. There's still a lot of defensive work to clean up. I think that there was a couple, it's almost like it comes and goes in waves. There was a couple of 5-minute long stretches, multiple like 5-minute long stretches in this game where it just felt like the puck was in our zone for the entirety of it. And
Yeah.
you have guys going on like 2-minute, 2:15, 2:30 long shifts because they can't get the puck out of their own zone. And then Husso just has to glove it and get on top of it because there's just no end in sight. And
Mhm.
so I think that will continue to be kind of the biggest point of emphasis going forward. And they have proven several times already this season that they can win games in spite of those happening. They did it
Mhm.
the first game against New Jersey. They did it tonight, really. Like they have shown that they have the ability to be a good enough hockey team to overcome that. But let's not like put ourselves behind the 8 ball. Like let's
Yeah.
let's not try. Let's not have to win in spite of bad defense. Like let's just tighten it up and have a good all around unit.
Well, and that defense and that 5-on-5 play is one thing, and the reasons they've won games in the past is because of good goaltending, which we've talked about, and good special teams, which we'll talk about in segment 2.
Right.
But before we can get to that, I got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, the power play and penalty kill showed up in a big way in this game. And we talked about that yesterday, that the Washington Capitals were playing like a middle of the pack team in pretty much every facet. They still had a very strong offense. They still had good defense, and they had really good goaltending. Darcy Kemper came into this game. He was the starter. He's off to a hot start. And their power play and penalty kill sat squarely at 15th in the league. So almost dead in the middle in terms of both special teams. And you came out there with a power play and penalty kill, what, I think one spot higher at 14th and a power play that was at 22nd. And those two things came out and it beat theirs. And that's how you won this game, on the back of good goaltending. A power play goal by Lucas Raymond tied it up, his third goal in 3 games. He had two games ago and then one in this one. One of those in the last game was on the power play. So let's start there. Let's talk about Lucas Raymond and let's talk about the power play, because the team went as a whole. I think they had 3 power play opportunities, or was it just the 2? They had 3 power play opportunities and 1 goal in this game. And this power play, man, they don't score as much as I think they should be. And we've talked about that a lot too, that the Red Wings power play typically moves the puck very well, gets a lot of opportunities, Dominic Kubalik, but doesn't really convert a whole lot. But when it converts, man, it comes together. And this was one of those goals. This was one of those games where the Lucas Raymond goal was a beautiful feed that came from Kubalik cross crease, that came cross zone from another Red Wing. And it was just a nice tic-tac-toe pass. And they've perfected the art of drawing the defenseman in towards the guy at the puck to clear up that lane to go across the ice to the other guy. Dominic Kubalik had 3 or 4 opportunities in this game, and either fanned on the shot or missed wide, which is just that's the give and take of Dominic Kubalik. When he hits the net, it's going in, but God forbid he hits the net.
On that. He had a couple that, I mean, they weren't necessarily competitive, but he had a couple that just went, right in the gut.
But in that particular instance, he went cross to Lucas Raymond. It was a little in front of him, so he played it off his skate and was able to corral it to bury it. I mean, this power play has shown a lot more creativity and has just looked a lot better than it has last year. Don't let the conversion rate fool you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll reiterate what I said earlier this week, where I think there's a step in development that involves converting on good opportunities. I think that's a progression, but at the same time, you are starting to see, I mean, in this game, even in spite of the fact that the last, 3 of the last 5 games now have been really brutal, you're still seeing a lot more competent power play product, certainly than you saw last season. And that's at least a good sign. And I would like to see them convert more for sure. I think we all would. But even on opportunities they're missing in this game, even on opportunities they missed, there was still some good possessions and whatnot. And that's at least nice to see. And on the other end, took some bad penalties, I thought. Penalty kill kind of stepped up. as a unit in this game. But
Speaking of penalties, how did Lucas Raymond get a penalty there? On
oh
that
yeah,
when
I have no
Kuznetsov
clue.
got in his face and literally grabbed his head, and Lucas Raymond, showing the most composure I've ever seen out of an NHL athlete, just did not even lay a finger on him, and they
Yeah,
took them both. I hate with a
I
passion.
hate
It's
the
just
yeah, I just hate the like one goes, they both have to go
yeah.
roughing crap.
Hate's a strong word, and I know I use it a lot in a hyperbolic fashion, but this is an instance when I say hate, I mean hate. Because exactly what you just said, that whole mentality of when there's like two guys going at it and there's a scuffle, you take them both. Lucas Raymond literally did not want to draw a penalty there because he knew his team was going on the power play and he knew his team had possession on a delayed penalty.
Yeah.
Kuznetsov, and kind of smartly, I will give him some credit, even though he's a scumbag in this game, because he was very dirty in this game. He very
It was
smartly,
chippy.
he very smartly got in that scuffle to have the whistle blown. But it was still an instance where like he should have gotten the only penalty. I did Lucas Raymond because they want to take them both because the refs are scared to call the game as they see it because then they're scared of being called bias. If they take them both, there's no bias there. It's just BS. Call the penalties as you see them. Lucas Raymond did nothing wrong. And it could have been a 5-on-3 for the Red Wings if they had called that straight, which would have been huge. Now, Red Wings won in the end, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. But if they had lost because of that, or not because of that, but with addition of that, I would have
Yeah.
been a lot more furious. So, refs, stop doing ref things. Just call the game.
Stop doing ref things. There you go.
But you know what I mean. Red Wings penalty kill in this game, Scotty, came up huge,
Big, real
absolutely
big.
huge. The Capitals went 0 for 4 in this game, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were very smart in stifling Ovechkin and his shooting lane. Like everyone knows he's going to sit in that left circle. I saw on one power play 2 blocked shots and an intercepted pass, all meant to go to Ovi. They knew that the Capitals' game plan is to get that puck to Alexander Ovechkin and let him rip it.
Correct.
Moritz Seider blocked a shot, got off the ice, came back on the ice like 30 seconds later.
Got that dog in him.
He was absolutely phenomenal. And the Red Wings were absolutely phenomenal at keeping an eye on him and then just killing a penalty kill in general. I mean, and that's why we talk about it, Scotty. To win these types of games, you've got to perform well on the special teams because that is, like you said, you win in spite of your weaknesses. That's what this team's going to have to do a lot this year until they can get that 5-on-5 system that Malone's trying to implement into place and have it run smoothly. They're winning in spite of their flaws. They're winning because the power play has been so much improved, which is to a credit to Lalone. I'm not trying to say that the 5-on-5 isn't succeeding because of Lalone. The power play is also succeeding because of Lalone, and the penalty kill is also succeeding because of Lalone and his coaching staff. So the weaknesses and the strengths that we've seen thus far are all part of the process of this team growing. We saw it crumble on Monday, and we saw it come to a head today, where the 5-on-5 play might not have been perfect, but power play, penalty kill, and goaltending was all phenomenal, and it led them to a 3-1 win in a game they usually probably wouldn't have won because they got outplayed at most points.
Yeah, no, and I really do want to give the penalty kill a ton of credit because I thought that it looked really solid in this one. And again, we've seen games like the Bruins game, especially. We've seen a lot of games lately where the penalty kill has kind of gotten shelled, especially after a hot start, which was discouraging. And it's nice to see that they can go up against a good team. Like this is a good hockey team and that we're facing. And yeah, it was really solid. And I thought it really highlighted a very outside of still the issues that remain on defense. I think that this was one of the better all-around games that they've played in a minute.
Well, let's not. I mean, obviously, the Red Wings won in this game. That's phenomenal. But let's not also just bag on the defense as a whole. While there's still a lot left to be, our point we're trying to make is that there are still things that need to improve. They played a much improved game this game tonight or last night by the time you're listening to this. But and it is shown. And look at the number of blocked shots that they had. I mean, they had 20 blocked shots. The Washington Capitals 7
for sure.
They weren't afraid of it. They played a better defensive game. It's just that it still wasn't perfect in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, far from perfect. Yeah, this was a good win. This is a much needed win. This was almost a necessary win. I'm amped. This is a good team performance. It's just this week we talked about like the reasons that the defense is still struggling and whatnot. And all of those pretty much remained. I don't think any of those really went away. The forward defense
No.
was still not very sharp in this one. The blue line was just a blender because the third pairing was such a liability that they just said, forget it. We're just going to, the first like half of the game straight up, it was just every person was with a different, like a different pairing, was with a different, it was wild. It was straight up a blender. And I think that I'm fine with it. Like, I know that's kind of weird, but like I was kind of cool with it because something needs to change. Something needs to happen. Let's see if certain guys can play well with certain guys they haven't got an opportunity yet. Like, sure, why not? So yeah, this was a significantly better performance, a significantly better product than yesterday, but we lost 8-3. Like, no kidding, a win is going to be better than an 8-3 loss. But I'm just, yeah, it's a great win. It's an important win. They looked better than they've looked in a long time, relatively speaking, this season. But those issues still remain. That's all.
Well, and so also the defense obviously taking a step forward in this game while still not looking fantastic is important to note because I think the defense was massively helped out by the fact that Michael Rasmussen came back into this game. And at 5-on-5, he was a .09 expected goals against in this game. He and Filip Zadina led the team in expected goals for percentage, and that is solely because their expected goals against in this game were both .09, under a tenth of a percentage point in expected goals against. They are both, and it was funny, is one's a 9th overall pick, one's a 6th overall pick. In that range, you expect someone who scores a lot of goals, but defensively, those guys are very sound. Filip Zadina has turned into the complete opposite type of player than what we were expecting. He had an expected goals for percentage, or expected goals for of .62. Like, it was like third on the team at 5-on-5. So, I mean, he continues to just like not score when he could be scoring. But he and Michael Rasmussen have developed a really good defensive games, and I think that goes a long way into this. I mean, every time I saw Filip Zadina in the defensive zone, he was doing something useful. He is needed.
We just talked about it, right? Like, that's a pretty big need for this team at the moment. Absolutely. So yeah, of course.
Is it a hot take, Scotty, for me to say, and I'm kind of like warming up to the idea of that being Filip Zadina's role? Because we have a plethora of scores in the top 6 now, especially the role. Just like a bottom 6 defensive forward.
Well, what do you mean by, is that a hot take?
Well, because he was taken 6th overall, so the expectation of him, especially after what he said when he was in juniors,
is it a hot take? At this point in the fan base, no. Like, it's not. I think the fan base is him and Killian Hayes, man, plummeting. Stocks plummeting, right? But like, so no, I don't think it's a hot take to say, oh, I think he's going to be a bottom 6, but like could be a plus, like, bottom 6 defensive kind of forward. I don't think that's a very hot take. I do still think that it is a letdown of expectations. I think that those are two different things. Yeah. Like, no, I think the fan base is pretty much with you. I don't think there's too many people left, at least, that are riding high on the Filip Zadina is going to be a, 30, 35 goal scoring top 6 forward. But at the same time, I also don't think that, or I do think that you can expect that and still understand that is not living up to expectations.
I mean, when he's on the ice, the team just generates more shots for than shots against by a large margin. So it's really just, he's going to be one of those guys, one of those first round picks where you look back and go, man, for where he was drafted, you were going to expect more. But I mean, he's been around for like 700 games. He's made a nice little career out of himself. Riley Sheahan, granted, not taking nearly as high as Filip Zadina was, but he was a middle of the first round pick. He's made a nice little career for himself. There was higher expectations because he was a first round pick, but he's bounced around the league and he's had success, moderate success wherever he's going. He's like a perfect example. I don't want Filip Zadina to be Riley Sheahan. It's a bad comparison, but as far as like, he could make him dig himself a role as a defensive forward on this team. I mean, the team generates more shot attempts for than shot attempts against whenever he's on the ice. He just doesn't score. He's just not the one scoring. I mean, it's like this.
It's also on the bottom 6.
Yeah. he's just such an enigma, and he'll continue to be polarizing. But I don't hate the Phillips in a defensive game, man. I'm liking it.
No,
I'm
no. I
liking
mean,
it.
no one should. It's good. It's been positive. Yeah, absolutely. He's been
So,
really solid there.
we got to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up this conversation on this game and do a quick 2-game preview. So it's going to be the shortest previews you guys have ever heard in your entire life as the Red Wings play back-to-back nights against the Islanders and the Rangers when we come back. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, we got to talk about Larkin. We got to talk about Andrew Copp. Andrew Copp got his first career goal as a Detroit Red Wing in this game, in a game that he played pretty well overall. He obviously got his first goal. It was one of those, they don't ask how, they ask how many type situations where Adam Ernie, of all people, who I also very hot and cold in Adam Ernie from shift to shift, because I love the energy he brings and I love his physicality, and he creates turnovers, but then he also turns the puck over. So I don't know where I land with him, but playing like top 6 minutes these last few games, he fed the puck out front to Andrew Copp, who just redirected towards the net, went off the stick of Kemper into the net for his first career goal, and ended up being the game winner. Dylan Larkin got the secondary assist on that goal, and then he ended up scoring the game winner off of an assist from Andrew Copp. So, I mean, this is more about like
career goal as a Red Wing.
Yeah, first career goal as a Red Wing, which is great.
Not his first career goal.
Sorry. I was going too fast there. First career goal as a Red Wing. But I mean, it's great to see that happened for Copp. There's really not a lot to break down on that play other than it was a nice feed out front.
I'll say I thought Copp looked good kind of all. I mean, that was we talked about his like neutral zone presence and defensive presence all season, and how that's kind of been keeping his head above water so far. I thought he was pretty that was the most aggressive offensively that we've seen from him, and I know that that's easy to say with the 2 points, but I think even if you take away the puck finding the back of the net and the assist to Larkin, that was probably the best he looked offensively so far this year. So that's a good sign. Hopefully,
but he's been snake bitten too. He's had a lot of good opportunities. He just had struggled to find the back of the net.
And he missed the preseason. A lot of people pointed it out. So
or surgery,
right?
So, but for Dylan Larkin though, we talked about it a little bit the other day, but now he's got 13 points in 10 games. I'm so sick and tired of seeing this rhetoric on the internet. And I admitted I was wrong about this last year. People continue to say Larkin's not a 1C. He's at over a point per game for the second time in his career starting the season. Obviously, he fell beneath the point per game last season, just shy of a career high after he sustained his injury. But he's off to another hot start. He's now at 13 points in 10 games. When can we lay this Dylan Larkin's not a 1C rhetoric to rest, man? Like at what point? What has to happen?
Honestly, I think that will always be there until they have postseason success.
That's fair.
And I'm not saying that's where I stand, but I'm saying that I think that rhetoric will exist until there is somewhat sustained and or legitimate playoff success, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, that's really fair, but I mean, he's just been last season and so far this season, he's been the highest producing forward on the Detroit Red Wings, and he leads the way. I mean, a lot of times he leads the way in the energy and the momentum by getting the scoring started most nights. I mean, he had another goal in this game that got overturned because of a questionable goalie interference call. He's just, there was a little bit of an argument to be made. I think in the end, if they would have challenged it, it would have been goal interference still, but Toronto shoved a little bit.
There's certainly an argument. Like, what is he supposed to do? But at the same time, that is like the textbook definition of goal interference.
He got pushed into him, but it was good. It was good.
Kind of just a rock and a hard place situation.
Yeah, but he's just so good, man. So good.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely.
Okay, game preview time. Red Wings play Saturday at 1:00 against the New York Islanders. I think that's game
98 night, right?
That's 98 night, and that game's at home. Then they go to New York to play the Rangers at 5:00 on Sunday. Why they did a home? They the Islanders at home to play the Rangers on the road. I don't know. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird.
It's weird. But the New York Islanders, after a slow starter, off to the races. They're currently up, as of recording this, they're up 4-2 with less than 10 minutes left in the third period on the St. Louis Blues. So if they win this game, they'll be 7-4-0. Just riding a hot streak like you wouldn't believe. Lane Lambert, as their new head coach, has continued that Barry Trotz mantra of just defensive-minded offense, and it's paying off. Brock Nelson, 11 points in 10 games. Matthew Barzal, 10-10. Anders Lee, 10-10. They're getting offense all over the place. Looking at the goaltending, They've got solid goaltending in Ilya Sorokin, who I thought last year was going to really come alive. This year has really come alive. 9.35 save percentage in 7 games played. And their backup in Simon Varlamov has a 9.07 save percentage. So they got good goaltending. They play a good defensive game. And they got offense coming from all different angles right now. They're going to be a tough team to beat. And it just continues the tough stretch for the Detroit Red Wings.
They also have a phenomenal goalie situation currently going on in net, as you kind of alluded to there. But yeah, I mean, just looking at like team stats, right? They are 6th in the NHL in goals scored a game and 3rd in least amount of goals against a game. So there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
They're
They
talking
suffocate you on defense.
about so far this season, a top 6 offense and a top 3 defense on the same squad. That's a tough opponent. And again, it just adds to this really tough stretch the Wings are going through right now. And that's why this Caps game was so important to get 2 out of.
They're also 3rd in the league on penalty kill with a 94.1% success rate. The only weakness they have is on the power play, where they rank 29th. So I guess the key to success in this game is take a lot of penalties. They can't score that way.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Let's calm down a little bit.
But yeah, they're a really well-rounded team right now. And this right now is the Islanders team I expected last year, because
Sure.
2 years ago, they were really good. It made a deep run in the playoffs. Last year, they just fell apart. A lot of it had to do with injuries, but this season, they're finally climbing back to where they were as like the one tried and true, just defensive mass. They're like, there's so few teams in the league that play so good of defense that they win games like more than they don't. Like a lot of times you have to accompany that defense with offense. They're getting good offense. Again, they have 3 players.
Hockey's played today, just
in
general.
It's just an offensive game, but they play such a suffocating defensive game. It's really worked out for them. So, I mean, if you want to win that game, I mean, I think there's not really any like one thing the Red Wings can target. We talked about that with the Washington Capitals, but even more so right now with the Islanders. The Islanders are doing everything else well, or everything the same things the Capitals are doing well, but even better so far, with the exception of the power play. So you just got to come out and play even better than you did against the Capitals if you want to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Rangers right after. That's a team. Look, man,
That's their first in the Metro Division right now, so that's a tough doubleheader
for sure. And I'm a big fan of what the Rangers have cooking as far as like roster construction over there. We kind of talked about it going into the season. They have a really, really talented young nucleus that just keeps growing every season. It seems like I'm a big fan of them. They'll be in the postseason. I mean, this is tough, man. That's tough. And they are not necessarily setting the world on fire offensively like the Islanders kind of are at the moment, but that's a darn good hockey team, and it's a tough back-to-back. It's a tough home and home. It's all tough.
Yeah, I mean, then their power play and penalty kill is right in the middle of the league as well, between I think that's 15th and 12th for power play and penalty kill respectively. So they're tough to play against on special teams as well. I mean, there is no easy solution that we can target as Red Wings fans to say this is what the Red Wings have to do to win. What you have to do to win is just outplay the other team. There's no X factor. There's no magical solution. I mean, if you want to talk about players, I mean, it could just be like, oh, Andrew Copp continues to get hot, and maybe that carries us to a win. But it's going to take a complete game. You're going to need Ville Husso, because Nedeljkovic is going to get one of those starts. So you probably go net against the Islanders to give Husso the immediate next night off, or another more time between his next start off, and then go against the Rangers with Ville Husso. I mean, that's really the only question mark, is who starts in those games. And I imagine, like I said, Nedeljkovic then Husso.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I mean, I'm intrigued on which one will get which game, but yeah.
I mean, it could go either way. They'll both play because it's a back-to-back. That's just what it comes down to. It's going to be a tough weekend. And I think that this weekend, and we've been saying it a lot the last few days, but this weekend's going to say a lot about what this team's goals are, not goals, but motivation level is to try and succeed this year, because these are legitimate opponents, guys. Legitimate opponents, not fringe opponents like the Capitals are, and like some people are saying the Wild are this year, but legitimate opponents in the Islanders and the Rangers. So if you go 1-1 this year and the loss isn't a blowout, not this year, this weekend. It's pretty damn good weekend.
Agreed.
So, all right. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. We ball.
Radical. All right.
Don't ever do that again. Radical.
Oh, radical, dude. We'll be back on Monday with 2 game recaps. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team.
BetOnline.
Every game. You didn't do that last night, by the way. I hope you realized that.
What?